Hiyo gamers, in this video, let's have a fun discussion about my hopes and fears for new Fontaine characters. The title is true, I'm both excited and worried for what's to come. What we know currently is that there's a new mechanic that is solely tied to Fontaine characters known as the Arc system, or Numa Owasia. The system is not complex at all for battle, it's just a counter to certain enemies when you use the opposite effect, but it is kind of crazy for exploration, so we don't have to touch on that. We do know that Lenny and seemingly Fontaine are Numa aligned due to their abilities being slightly lighter and certain light-based effects coming from them. And then Lynette, given for free, is our Owasia aligned character, seeming darkness oriented, meaning that our Hydro Traveler is probably definitely Numa, because we have them for free. But what does that all mean? This means that the use case of Fontaine characters will now lie in their elemental type corresponding to the team they would use while dealing with those pesky enemies that are weak against the Arc. So, to make a big example, if you run a Dendro team against enemies who have the Owasia or Numa Arc weakness, you may struggle to fit Lenny, Lynette, and Fontaine into your team to break those enemies properly. Right now, we don't have those main elements of Dendro, Hydro, or Electro in this Arc element, which means those characters in those elements that are, I guess, the alignment, maybe you need a specific one too, that will be extremely sought after, but also extremely frustrating to look for. That is my worry. Because we all know that they'll ease in these enemies into Spiral Abyss, and then they'll make 17 more enemies who have this annoying system, and then it'll be even more annoying to deal with on both halves at the same time. No, I'm not speaking this into existence, it's just called being predictable. And pessimistic. So yeah, I said it. Hoyoverse is being predictable. That right there is one of my huge worries for Fontaine characters, and they've laid it out right in front of us to basically deal with. However, since we are now out of the Dendro meta and Dendro Nation at that, we can also expect to see some unique archetypes and fun designs for characters. Fontaine right now looks pretty interesting right now with him having his physical and cryo hybrid, maybe shatter DPS focused, and it's something that we haven't seen or heard of before. But we'll have to see how he's played, because him having physical damage is not that good. So then that leaves Lenny and Lynette. And if I'm completely honest, Lenny and Lynette are highly anticipated characters, but they seem boring? Is that just me? Having an aim shot pyro DPS that seems to be mostly mono pyro, and an Animo support that doesn't seem to do anything meaningful except for her Owasia alignment and being accessible? That has me worried at their first impressions to Fontaine. I'll still be investing in these magic siblings, and I love their designs and I love them, but I think that's also an incredible allegory for how they'll develop Fontaine characters in the future. This introduction is simply just the beginning. The magic show has only just begun. There still are some unique mechanics to them, like Lenny and Lynette can do some HP sacrificing stuff, which means they can synergize with their new artifact set, remember this for later. With all that, I still do have some optimism in me, and I have this big brain theory which, with all of this coming together, I just knew that something was coming. And which, by the way, I don't look at or talk about leaks at all on this channel, so they do not influence my ways of thinking, and I just want to get my thoughts out here before anything gets too saturated and flooded. This theory that I have seems incredibly likely to the point where there are too many clues pointing in the direction, and I wouldn't be too surprised if it did happen, and I don't know how I'd feel, depending on its execution. It just seems too obvious. The fact that Lenny is mono pyro, has HP mechanics that can synergize with a new artifact set, makes me think mono element or reactionless teams and HP scaling or healing focused seems to be the entirety of Fontaine's meta. That is just it. It's laid out in front of us for all of us to see. And so, with the specific characters that were teased in the Overture trailer, the Hydro Archon and her Supreme Justice guy, Mr. N, whatever, I don't know how to say his name, will absolutely be a powerful mono hydro team, assuming of course they are both hydro. They don't both have visions, which is cool. I like that. But anyway, it'll make mono hydro a good choice to be off meta while still functioning and really powerful. I think Mr. Nouveli will be an incredible hydro buffer with an HP scaling kit, which Furina, the Hydro Archon, will give Hydro Resonance, which buffs HP more, and will focus on HP buffs herself, like she will be not C4 Yelan and actually be a C0 character to buff HP, and make this specific artifact that Lenny likes so much because he sacrifices his own health work on any character who does not sacrifice their own health. How, you ask? By sacrificing her party's max HP by a certain percent, which in turn is a change in HP. And that also kind of unfortunately means that the healer meta with her is incredibly needed, so you won't find any shields here, except Baiju's shields, but those are tiny. So, it's pretty obvious, and I've unfortunately planted your expectations if you actually manage to listen to me and agree with me, which props to you, that takes a lot of willpower. But what makes this a good or a bad thing, with all that said? Well, the bad thing is, Hoyo may have accidentally leaked their entire plans well in advance, and are going to curate their marketing around characters that are needed, or just desired because they're cool, and characters that bring something so broken surrounding the Fontaine meta or enemy design that is just gonna feel cheap. And like, oh, you need this, otherwise you can't do this. I sure hope it doesn't go that way, but it's worrying. Also, I'm gonna stop anyone right now from posting in the comments, it's a gacha game, they're supposed to do that. That's not the point of this. The point of this was to show that the plans that they have laid out are so obvious that it's not just a new element like Dendro, it's a whole system that they've curated and are gonna make it completely unfair for whatever endgame content they have planned. Whatever. So that's what I'm trying to say. It's going to be so unfair to the point where it's going to force you to pull for a necessity rather than a character's fun factor. That's the worry. Okay, back to the video. They've at least been filling out roles that need to be filled, and this has been true since in Sumeru when Nahida came out. They needed to fill the roster of Dendro so that she wouldn't be the only one. Oops, that failed. But really, they added an on-field DPS carry with Alhaitham, an accessible Dendro healer with Yao Yao, a premium Dendro healer and small bloom mitigator with Baiju, a bloom-focused self-sufficient driver with Kave, and Kirara. She's a shielder. That's not much else. But great for climbing! The issue was they were just incredibly blatant with the Dendro element being so new and needing to fill in all these roles and entice players to get these new roles, but then they just had Nahida, so like they failed in that regard. But now things can get a little more interesting and we can focus on missed archetypes like Hydro Claymore, Cryo Catalyst, which I think seems super likely with like Charlotte, and much more mono element buffers since we're missing Hydro and Dendro, which technically Nahida is mono Dendro buffer if you think about it, but it's not just new weapons either, it's new designs. We're missing a dedicated Electro and Hydro Shielder, for example, and Dia being released too early is something I've been thinking about a lot because it seems like she would be a solid character in Fontaine, and I can see many more new characters like her. Hopefully not like her. Bigger numbers, please. That's important. And not standard banner character on purpose. That's also important. Maybe even Navia will be a unique elemental mastery scaling Geo character. Or a character that's like Nilu and focuses on Crystallize. Oh my gosh, I've needed that character since Goro. Like, ever since I saw Goro, you know this if you've seen me on my channel. I needed an elemental mastery Crystallize scaling character since literally yesterday. So I think we have a lot to explore in Fontaine. But those are my worries. What do you think? What do you guys think about this? Yeah. Do you think Fontaine characters will be hype and interesting? Or, you know, they might be force marketed or something scummy? What do you think? I think the arc system is very unnecessary, and I don't like it at all. I wish it was only exploration. That would be more interesting. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What do you guys think? Also, like and subscribe if you enjoy my content. I do a lot of Honkai Star Rail and Genshin stuff. Yeah. Okay.